Illustrate with diagram the four trigonometric quadrants of the coordinate axis. Give the signs of the trigonometric functions respectively. Okay, so in trying to do this, it will also explain why we have the first, fourth quadrant, second, third, all the quadrants, why we have their signs and things they do. So it will be okay for you to know that quadrant is simply talking about Gantt diagram. Just as I know that if I draw this in complex number, draw this in complex number, we'll call it Gantt diagram. This side, if I have, for example, AB, the first one is x-axis, the second one is y-axis. So this is plus 0. That is x is plus, no y here. Then this is 0 plus, no x, then y. This is minus 0. So x is negative here, no y. Then this is 0 minus, no x here, y is negative. If I know this, it means that in the first quadrant, second quadrant, third quadrant, fourth quadrant, if I know this, it means that that principle of all science students take coffee, ASTC, away from the angle, use sine, towards the angle, use cos. So here, this means that all the trig ratios are positive in the first quadrant, only sine is positive in the second quadrant, only tan is positive in the third quadrant, and only cos is positive in the fourth quadrant. So we need to prove this to see why it's so. So we know that sine is opposite over hypotenuse and cos is adjacent over hypotenuse and tan is opposite over adjacent. So in the first quadrant, second quadrant, third quadrant, fourth quadrant. So for the first quadrant, I want to look at this sine, cos, and tan in the first quadrant. So in the first quadrant, we can very well see that in the first quadrant is something like this. And that means that in the first quadrant, let me say I bring this out to be the quadrant. First quadrant, I have this. Remember I told you that this is always the alpha. This is always the alpha. The angle you're looking for, it should be less than 90 in each case. So for first quadrant, this is what you're looking for. And now notice that here, x here is positive, so here x is positive. Then y here is also positive, y is positive. So using the principles, I can now say that in the first quadrant, opposite of this angle, opposite of this very angle is plus. Plus hypotenuse is always positive in each case. Hypotenuse is plus, so plus over plus is plus. Now in the first quadrant, adjacent is this side, x-axis, plus hypotenuse. So plus over plus is plus. Then tan, opposite of this is plus over adjacent, plus, cos to plus. So in the first quadrant, everything is positive. Now let's check the second quadrant. This is the second quadrant, this side. So let's say I have this again. Let me draw this. Okay, let's say I draw this here. Let's say I draw this down here for the second quadrant. This is the angle. This is the angle I'm looking for. And remember that in the second quadrant, this side x, this side is negative. This is x. This side is negative. So x here is negative. Then y, this is the y, this side. Y here is positive. Y here is positive. Remember I told you that hypotenuse is always positive in the first, second, third, fourth quadrants. So if I know this, for the sine of this now, opposite of this angle is this, plus, all over hypotenuse. So it's plus. Now, in the second quadrant, opposite cos is adjacent over hypotenuse. Adjacent of this is this side over hypotenuse. So it's minus over plus, which is minus. Are you okay? Minus 2 over 1 is minus 2. So minus 2, cos is negative. Now, for tan, Opposite of adjacent, opposite of this is plus, adjacent is negative, and 2 over minus 1 is minus 2, so minus. So you see only the sign is positive in the second quadrant. Let's move to the third quadrant. The third quadrant, if I have this and I have this is the angle. Remember that this line is parallel to this. This is also having a parallel line this way. So this is the angle we are looking for. Then remember, from here down here, y here is negative. So this y is negative. Then x here, x this way is negative. This is negative. So let's do opposite of hypotenuse now. Opposite of this angle is this. So negative over hypotenuse is always positive. Remember I told you, over positive. Negative over positive is negative. Then for the cosine, adjacent over hypotenuse, this is the adjacent of this angle. This is the hypotenuse. Adjacent over hypotenuse, so negative over plus, negative. Then the tan, which is opposite over adjacent. Opposite of this angle is this. Adjacent of this angle is this. Negative over negative is equals to plus, which means that anything over anything is plus. Minus over minus is plus. So it's not just, yes, when you say is 1, that one is always positive, which means it's always positive. So you see that only tan is positive here. So you can see that sine in the first quadrant is positive, sine in the second quadrant is positive, tan in the third quadrant is positive. Let's check for the fourth quadrant. For the fourth quadrant, let's draw this. So notice that this line here, down here, y is negative, so this is negative. Then this way, going this way, x is positive. X is positive. So remember that the angle we are dealing with is this way. Why is it this way? This will always be equal to this, parallel to it. Then the angle we are dealing with whenever we're talking about this trig is always angle less than 90. Very important to note. On each side you have 90, but when you go inside those triangles, you see that its angle is less than 90. So if you know this, even when you draw a equilateral triangle, inside the equilateral triangle, all the sides are less than 90. So if you know this, let's now use the same principle for sine. Opposite of this angle is this. Hypotenuse is always positive, so it will be negative over positive, which is equals to negative. Then for the cos, which is adjacent, cos which is adjacent of hypotenuse, adjacent of this is plus over hypotenuse, which is equals to plus. Now for the tan, which is equals to opposite of adjacent, opposite of this angle is this sine. Opposite of this angle, the side the angle is facing is always the opposite. The side the angle is sitting on is always the adjacent. The longest side is always the hypotenuse. So opposite of this angle is negative all over the adjacent, which is positive, over plus. So you see that negative over positive is negative. So you can see that right here in the fourth quadrant, cos is equals to positive. So that is why we normally give you this principle, which is ASTC. All of them are positive in the first quadrant, only sine is positive in the second quadrant, only tan is positive in the third quadrant, and only cos is positive in the fourth quadrant. And you very well know that every angle that exists on earth has 4 angles. It is coming from the fact that this side you see is equal to this side, just that unless it's sine, only the sine angle, let's say I have 30 degrees, if I'm doing sine 30 and sine 150, because 150 falls below 180 is in the first and second quadrant, it will be positive. It will be positive. Now anything for sine in these 2 quadrants, anything for sine here will be negative, For example, 30 is equals to 150, and 150 is equals to 210. 210 is equals to 330. These angles are the same, but just notice that because if we are talking about sine of this angle will only be positive in these two, and down here it will always be negative, but it will always be the same value. What you will have here is going to be half, but here it will be negative half, here it will be negative half. It will always be the same. So the sine, or this the angles, be it sine, be it cosine, be it tangent of any angle, will always give you 4 answers, 2 positive and 2 negative. And why is it going to be so? Notice that in the first quadrant all is positive, so it will always give you in the first quadrant all to be positive. Like tan of 30 will be positive here, it will be negative here. That is tan 150, which is equivalent to 30, will be negative here. Then in the third quadrant, tan is positive, 210, tan 210 will be positive. And in the fourth quadrant, tan is negative, it will be negative here. Tan 330 will be negative. So you see it. So it will always give you positive 2, negative 2. That is because of the fact that every angle that exists in this form. So up and down, right and left. So when you do this way, you see that you have a circle. So there you have it. So as we go on with examples, we'll be explaining and throwing more light to this. Thank you very much.